welcome and hoping for a very interesting discussion. You've got a fantastic panel, which has already been introduced. Uh, the context of this discussion is inspired by Ali Khan's book, uh, Cricket in Pakistan. इस किताब में Ali has investigated, explored Pakistan's cricket history and culture from various different angles. He is an anthropologist, और वो angles economic हैं, religious हैं, sectarian हैं, ethnic हैं. And the other book we will also be discussing is Wasim Akram Sultan, recently published, an autobiography which he co-authored. I think this book can also be put in the context I've just talked about, perfectly fit over the year. So we'll kick off, and I'll start with Ali, the author of Cricket in Pakistan. Ali, there have been quite a few books written, very good books written in the last 10 years on Pakistan cricket. Usman Samiuddin की थी Unquiet One, उसके बाद Peter Obaid की है White Tigers and another one, and recently of course Wasim की किताब आई है, it's an autobiography. The way you have approached in trying to explore Pakistan's cricket history and culture mostly through these various different angles which I just mentioned, so why did you find the need that a more academic look at Pakistan cricket's culture and Pakistan history requires a more academic look? इस किताब का main purpose क्या है और ये किसके लिए लिखी गई है?
Thank you, Nadeem Saab. I think, not that I want to disappoint anyone, but this is not essentially a book on cricket. It's a book on Pakistan. And the trick for me was to try and understand Pakistan's history, Pakistan's culture, through the lens of cricket. I'll give you a few examples of that which are in the book. Right from the start when Pakistan was made in 1947, the question really was for many years whether the country would even survive. Considering that 20 million people crossed borders, up to a million people lost their lives, and we were a country that had very few resources. And yet, Pakistan has not only survived, but it has had periods of prosperity. Difficult to imagine in today's day, but we have had periods of prosperity. And if you look at the parallel history of Pakistani cricket, but in 1947 we had nothing. We had no domestic structure. We had absolutely no, structures in place for cricket. And yet, within 5 years, this was a team that won a game in its first tour to India in 1952. Just to give you some context, it took India 20 years to win a first match against England. Pakistan did it in its first tour in 1954. It took New Zealand 26 years. Again, Pakistan cricket, against all odds, managed to do that very early on. It reflects how Pakistan's own history has been. Against odds, this is a country that was created and that has managed to find its place in the comity of nations. The book goes on then to talk about how we progressed through the 70s, the importance of Karachi and Lahore at that time, then the changing demographics. We go to the 80s and 90s when suddenly Pakistan cricket becomes much more inclusive. You have, smaller towns in Punjab, later Khyber Pakhtunkhwa comes on board. So really my book is about Pakistan. It's about corruption in Pakistan. It's about the youth and the exuberance of the country as reflected in cricket. It's about religiosity in cricket and in Pakistan. So in all of the things that you see in cricket, you see in Pakistan as well. And that's basically how I felt it was important for me to make a contribution. I think across the border in India, you have a lot more work that is done on the centrality of cricket to Indian society. And I felt that it was important that something similar would also be done. I don't claim that this is a book that is all-encompassing. For me, it's a small stepping stone. And, you know, Wasim Bhai's book is another one, but we need a lot more of that to try and understand the centrality of cricket to this country.
Thank you, Ali. So Wasim, this book, Sultan by Wasim Akram, it's an autobiography which he co-authored. इससे पहले इनकी दो इस तरह की किताबें आ चुकी थी, इस तरह के मतलब कि ऑटोबायोग्राफीज, एक अर्ली 90s में थी शायद, called Imran, Waqar and Wasim, and then there was a book called Wasim. But after reading this book, and this is my personal point of view, I haven't read a more honest account by a Pakistani cricketer, which has come out in shape of a book. And Wasim has discussed why he found the need to write this book at this point in time. It's in the book, but I would like him to explain it himself in front of the audience. Wasim?
Ji, Assalamu alaikum and good morning everyone. It's good to be here. It was tough. I think credit goes to my wife Shanira, who insisted that I should write my story for my kids. You know, I've been through a lot. My wife, Mama, left us when my boys were 7 and 10. And I have Ayla now 8 years old with Shanira, a little pocket rocket. So one of the reasons was the story is for my kids. When the world talks about me, the world talking about cricketing world, India, Pakistan, Australia, England, minus Pakistan, excuse me, batata hu why, India, South Africa, wherever the cricket has been played, you know, for ages. These Pakistanis, my countrymen, they are the one जो सबसे पहले नीचे आवाज लगाते हैं. कोई तारीफ लिखेगा, कोई वीडियो लगाएगा, पूरा दुनिया के तारीफ करी होगी, पाकिस्तानी चलेंगे. He is a match fixer, not knowing the exact story. So hence my kids have grown up now. One is 25, Taimur, Akbar is 22, and I'm an 8-year-old. So ये मेरी story है उनके लिए, और ये book like उन्होंने बताया सर, it's a very honest book. In Pakistani culture, unfortunately, we lie a lot. कि मिट्टी पा दो, छट दो, चुप करके बैठ जाओ. बस उसी में हम यहाँ तक पहुँच गए. ठीक है, prosperity आती है once in a while जैसे इन्होंने कहा, but consistency क्यों नहीं आती? और यही पाकिस्तानी, our own countrymen living abroad, living here, say how come Pakistan team is not consistent? That doesn't make sense to me. What is consistent in Pakistan? Cricketers are product of this culture, aren't they? So, अपने आप से झूठ बोलना. So book के लिए it was difficult for me to revisit some tragedies, some downtime, because I'm 57, almost 57 now, retired almost 2 decades, and I just don't want to take unnecessary stress. And this book was actually a lot of stress. I mean, credit to Gideon Haig, who really is a wonderful, wonderful writer and a great human being. We became very close friends. So कुछ चीज़ें मैं भूल गया हुआ था. You know, sometimes your mind tend to forget things you don't want to remember. But credit to Gideon, he reminded me. He had his homework done. So yeah, it's an honest book. It's all my ex-colleagues were very worried कि मैं उनके बारे में क्या लिखूंगा, उनकी पर्सनल लाइफ्स के बारे में. जवानी में सब ने पार्टी वार्टी की है, ठीक है, it's okay. But now again, that's the culture comes in. So I specifically told them, guys, this is nothing about your personal life. It's about my personal life. It's about the politics in Pakistan cricket when I played as a captain. So all these incidents are in there. For instance, 93 में जब मेरे खिलाफ rebel किया, I was 24-year-old young kid. I was a captain. 11 of my teammates rebelled against me, and they were at my house till 5 in the morning, partying. And then I went to practice. We were meant to go to New Zealand, and I saw all 10 of them सूट पहन के ग्राउंड के चक्कर लगा रहे हैं. मैंने कहा hang on a minute, that doesn't look right. And then I found out these guys rebelled against me. So I had to play. You see, when a sportsman play his sport, whatever he's good at, his focus should be only sports. But unfortunately, in our part of the world, it's not just that. You have to learn politics. You have to know the chairman. You have to know who's the next chairman, selectors, सिफारिशें. 21वीं सदी आ गई है, अभी तक सिफारिशें आती हैं और ऐसे लोगों की आते हैं कि आप उनका आपको मतलब यू गेट शॉक. अगर मैं नाम बताऊं कि यार इसको खिला लो, अब ये मोहल्ले की टीम है, इसको खिला लूं मैं. इफ इज गुड इनफ विल प्ले, ही और शी विल प्ले. सो सिफारिश कल्चर always has been, always will be. दुनिया में होता होगा, but not to that extent, unfortunately.
Thank you, Wasim. Hadeel, you are associated with a platform which also encourages women's cricket, right? And recently we've seen very encouraging trends in women's cricket, Pakistan cricket team. Most like it's a surprise, mostly to men.
Yes.
Yeah. And but they've been very competitive recently,
Yes.
because they might not be winning so many games, but some amazing players have come up. Acha, before I ask my question, I just want to talk about a cricket team which was a Kenya cricket team, which between 1990s and early 2000s was really competitive. 96 में उन्होंने वेस्ट इंडीज़ को हरा दिया था 96 के वर्ल्ड कप में, फिर 2002 या 2003 के वर्ल्ड कप में सेमीफाइनल पहुंच गए. बट वंस दैट जनरेशन रिटायर हुई, इसके बाद इंडियन क्रिकेट में कोई रिप्लेसमेंट नहीं था, कुछ नहीं हुआ ना. मेरा सवाल ये है, यू आर ऑल्सो कीन ऑब्जर्वर ऑफ पाकिस्तान विमेन क्रिकेट टीम, ये जो हमारी टीम एट दिस पॉइंट है, इसमें काफ़ी जैसे कोई भी मेल या फीमेल क्रिकेटर हो तो 30s जब एंटर करते हैं तो रिटायरमेंट एज शुरू हो जाता है. सो डू यू थिंक ये जनरेशनल है कि ये जनरेशन ऑफ वीमेन है, ये जब रिटायर हो जाएंगे डू वी हैव इनफ इन द टैंक कि नहीं, ये जो ट्रेडिशन बन रही है पाकिस्तान की विमेंस क्रिकेट टीम की, ये इस तरह चलती रहेगी या वो केनिया वाला हाल हो जाएगा? वंस दिस जनरेशन गोज देन देयर इज नो वन बिहाइंड, देन वी विल हैव टू स्टार्ट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच.
Well, to be fair, I think the opposite is happening. Women's cricket wasn't given that much importance to begin with. It's always been an afterthought. Eight match khila diya, okay, we made them play an exhibition match, a tournament here and there, but there was no real consistency in like grassroots movements and things. If you watch the under-19 Women's World Cup that just happened, you'd see there were a lot of positives for women's cricket. Anusha Nasser was one girl who was absolutely outstanding in my eyes, and there's been a general thought towards we need to improve women's cricket. We need to actually create a structure that perhaps existed but was not all-encompassing. Perhaps we need to now move a little bit more into Ahmedabad and into other cities of Pakistan, not just be so focused on Karachi and Lahore and Pindi. So regarding the generation, I think this generation has been punching above their weight. I think this women's cricket team, Muniba making that century the other day, some pretty incredible moments that we're having. But I think all that's doing is encouraging the next generation to come up and to take this sport up professionally. It's not just something you play until you're married, or it's not something you just play until you're 18. And you're seeing that, right? Even with the maternity laws in place, even with things, you're encouraging women cricketers in the fold, and you're seeing more parents, more fathers, brothers, siblings, a general mindset changing towards women's cricket. Because at the end of the day, this is not a country that's very open to women taking a field. And no matter how many women play cricket, there will always be 10 times more men playing. And so to change that mindset was the first hurdle. And we're seeing that mindset slowly change. We're seeing people accepting more women in cricket. And I see that in the next 10 years, I hope that we are a formidable side, because there's no reason why we shouldn't be.
Thank you so much. It's very encouraging. Ahmer, you have observations on football, culture as a whole, food, cricket. तुम्हारी ऑब्जर्वेशन बड़ी नुआंस्ड होती हैं. अच्छा, एक मैं चीज़ पूछना चाह रहा हूँ तुमसे कि मैं एक फिनोमेना जो मैंने ऑब्जर्व किया, आई वांट योर टेक ऑन इट. अभी रिसेंटली हमारी बहुत सारी होम सीरीज हुई, सब हार गए घर पे। इंग्लैंड ने पीट दिया, न्यूजीलैंड ने ओडीआई जीत दिए, इंग्लैंड जीत से पहले ऑस्ट्रेलिया जीत के चली गई। अच्छा, हम हारे जा रहे थे, बाबर आजम की कवर ड्राइव की जो वीडियोस हैं वो नहीं रोकी। अब मैं क्रिकेट से टीम के, अब वो अजहर अली थे, वो भी कुछ अच्छी खासी सेंचुरियाँ बना ली थी उन्होंने, लेकिन उनका हमेशा ये कहा जाता था कि यार इसकी सेंचुरी किसी काम आती नहीं है, या तो मैच ड्रॉ हो जाता है या वो हार जाते हैं, तो क्या फ़ायदा। बाबर आजम मेड टन्स एंड टन्स ऑफ रन इन द रीसेंट सीजन पाकिस्तान में, लेकिन मैचेस हारते गए, लेकिन वो वीडियोस चलते गए। ठीक है, तो व्हाट वाज इट अबाउट कि कुछ नहीं तो यही सही। व्हाट इज योर टेक, बिकॉज एक पॉइंट पे आके कोफ्त हो जाती है। इफ यू आर अ क्रिकेट फैन, यू लूजिंग एंड देन सडनली यू जस्ट सी बाबर आजम प्लेइंग दीज अमेजिंग शॉट्स। व्हाई डू यू थिंक दिस इज हैपनिंग?
Thanks, Nadeem. That's an excellent question. And before I start, I just want to also celebrate Ali Khan. I know लगते नहीं है, but क्योंकि हमारी we look like we're the same age, but he's my professor at Lums. And he taught really amazing courses, and I think because of him, I had the courage to kind of look at culture through a lens of, through an academic lens, through a lens of seriousness, etc. तो एक अगर आप चीज़ देखें कि जो अभी हम बात कर रहे थे कि 80s में अगर क्रिकेट पॉपुलराइज हुई है, इट गोज ऑन टू स्मॉल टाउन्स, दैट्स ऑल्सो द टाइम वेयर पाकिस्तान, अगर आप सबसे कहें जो सबसे ज़्यादा मेन स्ट्रीम पॉपुलर कल्चर था, you have the cinema is kind of going through its downturn, right? Public poetry was a big thing in Pakistan that had been clamped down upon. Cricket was an arena of popular culture that the state was okay with it, and particularly in the 80s it was very used as a way of propaganda कि हर दफ़ा जब पाकिस्तान में फ़ौजी आते हैं तो इंडिया भी आती है और उसके बाद इंडिया नहीं आती है। तो that tells us that cricket has this huge effect on the population, and I feel cricket is not just followed as a sport in Pakistan, but it also covers in for popular culture, right? तो इंडिया में शाहरुख खान बहुत बड़ा हीरो है, तो Bollywood is a big thing, films are a big thing. In Pakistan for the last 40 years, that void, that gap has been filled in largely by cricket, right? तो अगर आप पाकिस्तानी फैंस को देखेंगे तो सिर्फ ये नहीं देख रहे कि जी बॉलिंग अच्छी करा रहा है या कवर ड्राइव, पर उनको ये भी पता है कि जी बाबर आजम की गाड़ी कौन सी है, वो कौन से ब्रांड के जूते पहनता है. They're into it as pop icons, right? What you would see with rock stars or film stars in other countries. That whole space, only cricket is allowed in Pakistan, I feel, to occupy that space. And I think that's where Ali's book is so valuable, because you see a lot, जैसे म्यूज़िक है तो जी म्यूज़िक हराम है हलाल है, इसी पे हमारी ज़िंदगी गुजर रही है. फिल्मों पे पिछले 75 साल से रिवाइवल चल रहा है. Cricket is a space where the state is comfortable with it as well, and society not, it's not as popular as people imagine it is. In fact, cricket जहाँ जहाँ मकबूल नहीं है वहीं वहीं आपको नज़र आता है स्टेट भी इतनी मकबूल नहीं है. But wherever it is the main cultural force in Pakistan, not just a sporting force.
Thank you, Ahmer. अच्छा, I'll come back to Ali. Ali, आपने एक पूरा चैप्टर सेक्शन डेडिकेट किया हुआ है. Religion, I won't say religion, but religiosity, or exhibition of religiosity in the Pakistan cricket team sort of started to increase from early 2000s. I think one of the, what do you think is the reason? आपने भी इसको discuss किया है कि till about 1985, I would say, the Pakistan cricket team was basically made up of players coming from Karachi and Lahore, the main urban center, and they were more urbane, etc. But after that, after Pakistan started winning games more often, and then Sharjah Miadad ke chakki ke baad, game really took off, and it started getting popular across Pakistan, even in KP, which used to be called NWFP, जहाँ cricket को उतना lift नहीं दी जाती थी. And we started suddenly seeing players coming from there as well, and players coming from smaller towns and smaller cities in Punjab. Do you think this is also one of the reasons, because those guys couldn't really fit into the core of urbane Pakistan cricket का जो culture होता था उस ज़माने तक, So then they found some comfort with when the Tablighi Jamaat entered the fray. Do you think, आपका क्या reason है? Why did this happen?
Well, I mean, I think I was inspired to write that chapter when I read an article of yours in the Dawn on this some years ago. I think it's a combination of things, some of which I also mentioned in Wasim Bhai's book. But if you think about the rise of religiosity, you have to go back from 2000 to about 2 decades. And the reason I say 2 decades is because it's in the 80s when General Zia is beginning to start this social engineering of enforced Islamization. When that begins to happen, you have people growing up in an atmosphere that is very different from the culturally liberal times of the 70s, when you had cricketers like Javed Miadad or Mushtaq Mohammad or Zahir Abbas, Imran Khan, were very different, as you can see. But those that are born in those Zia years are born in a different time. They have different idioms, they're looking at things differently, and I think as Ahmer has rightly pointed out, it means that we are going through a decline in other areas of culture, be it music, be it poetry, be it a catastrophic decline in cinema. So cricket is the only thing that is really left. So people who grow up at that time begin to come from slightly different backgrounds. Let us also understand that it is in the late 70s that cricket is shown more and more on TV. Very important wins that we have against India and against Australia and Sydney are actually televised live. And as media grows, the ability for people to see cricket on their screens in smaller centres is much more possible. That means that there's an explosion of interest now, because you can actually see the game beyond Lahore and Karachi, maybe a few other places. We also have a World Cup 1987 that really spreads the game to Gujranwala and other areas. So we have a big growth, and it means that, rather than have people who are coming from university background or school background, you're getting people who come from much more diverse income backgrounds. Someone is the son of a sweeper, someone is the son of a guard, someone is, small farmers. So in many ways it's democratizing the game, which is a very good thing. And you're quite right, it grows to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well. So this means that religion becomes more central to the lives of many cricketers, because Pakistan is changing as well. And like I said, my book is all about those changes being reflected. So I think these are important things. Two more issues. One is leadership. And I think that leadership is something that has been not given enough importance. In cricket, the captain is more important than in any other sport. We had a religiously inclined captain in Inzamam that had an impact as well. And the last point is something that Wasim Bhai brought up in match fixing. Now, there has been no definitive response to match fixing beyond a few people. There have been rumors, there have been reports, there have been people's names, but what that does do is that it produces scandal. And I think for some cricketers who were named, one way to get redemption was to turn to religion. Not only because of scandal, but also because suddenly cricket has become a very commercial game. And you have, the kinds of money available, the kinds of stardom available that wasn't present before. And this kind of backlash is a kind of trying to fill the emptiness that comes with fame. And I think religion, for a while, filled that kind of vacuum. So this was, I think, the basis of what I saw as important.
So you say the religion basically filled a vacuum for a while. But we saw that after that, spot fixing thing happened, and all those controversies about the 2007, what happened at the 2007 World Cup, and nevertheless, Wasim,
जी
2021 में Miadad, Javed Miadad was quoted by Reuters saying that Imran Khan faced a rebellion, a possibility of a rebellion, and you've talked about it in your book as well, during the 1992 World Cup. And you write that during that tournament, Ramiz and Miadad called you over and started airing some disgruntlement against Khan Saab's captaincy, but you said, I don't want to have anything to do with it, I want to just concentrate. So, explain करें क्या हुआ था?
I think after winning the 92 World Cup, to start off, I don't know how we won that World Cup because we've lost our practice games. We lost a game against over 40s. We played in Canberra. We lost that. We played our first game against West Indies, lost by 10 wickets. And I think it was due to skipper's leadership. He had a belief. He said, मैंने गरीबों के लिए कैंसर का अस्पताल बनाना जहाँ उनका मुफ्त का इलाज होगा तो मुझे यकीन है कि हम ये वर्ल्ड कप जीतेंगे सो वो उन्होंने the first two bad games of the World Cup he kept on saying कि हम ये वर्ल्ड कप जीतेंगे I have a feeling because मैं चाहता हूँ कि अस्पताल बने ये वर्ल्ड कप जीतेंगे तो वो अस्पताल बनेगा और माशाल्लाह आप तीसरा बन रहे हैं कराची में so that I'm talking about 30 odd years ago his vision as you know was hard work. So World Cup jeet liya. We were too young. I was 22, 23, maybe 24. We were coming back via Singapore. Those days there weren't direct flights. So there was overnight stay in Singapore, and our ambassador at the time he invited us for dinner. So dinner से वापसी पे मैं आगे बैठा हुआ था इमरान भाई के पीछे और ये पीछे बैठे हुए थे 3-4. इन्होंने मुझे बुलाया कि I think the idea they thought probably at the time that जो भी हमें जाके तोहफे मिलेंगे या प्राइजेस मिलेंगे पाकिस्तान जाके वो इमरान हस्पताल को दे देगा बट इमरान भाई सेट डायरेक्ट साफली कि जो मुझे चीज़ें मिलेंगी पर्सनली वो मैं दूंगा हॉस्पिटल को बाकी आप लोगों को जो मिलेगी वो आप रखोगे सो आई वाज 23 आई सेड दिस इज द लास्ट थिंग आई वांट कि मनी के लिए लिटिल बिट मनी हियर एंड देयर डजंट बॉदर मी I've started my career so I was probably a bit naive and dumb so that worked for me at the time.
Actually, another thing, 1992 जब इमरान रिटायर हो गए
जी
जावेद मियादाद वाइस कैप्टन थे कैप्टन बन गए
जी
and then you guys go to England for a 5-test series
yeah
and you had defeated England in the World Cup final so that series became very important during the series और ये मैं जावेद मियादाद की किताब से उठा रहा हूँ ये
sure
Javed writes that Khan Saab was also there and I think he was commentating for a channel or something like that and he invited a handful of players for dinner and conveniently forget or refused to invite Javed Miadad and a few other players and Javed Miadad says that this was because Imran was still bitter that Miadad and some other players were willing to revolt against him during the 1992 World Cup. So why were just a handful of people invited by Imran?
Because he probably was friendly with those handful people. You work with people in big companies, you have colleagues, and then you have friends. It's simple, it's no complication about it. And I think Imran was never still is, I don't know about him recently, but playing days में after retirement वो ऐसे बंदे थे नहीं जो वो चीज़ अपने दिल में रखेंगे कि ये हुआ था तो मैं ये करूँगा I think उनके पास इतना टाइम ही नहीं था probably misread by Javed bhai I suppose at the time.
Okay. Hadeel, we're talking about this sort of culture. So I'm sure a culture is also developing in the Pakistan women's cricket team as well. जिस तरह का कल्चर पाकिस्तान की मेंस टीम में इन्वॉल्व हुआ जो वी टॉक्ड अबाउट एंड अली टॉक्ड अबाउट इन ग्रेट डिटेल इन हिज बुक के पहले क्लास कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होते थे फिर एथनिक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होते थे फिर इवन सेक्टेरियन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट वी टॉक्ड अबाउट दिस विद अली रिसेंटली तो यू क्लोजली वॉच द पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट विमेंस क्रिकेट टीम वहाँ किस किस्म का कल्चर वहाँ वो भी इन चीज़ों में इम्पैक्ट होता है
You know, it's interesting because women's cricket is almost a community. All the players know each other. It's also because of the numbers. the numbers are not as many as men's cricket. And so even if there are girls in, say, Connect College Lahore playing, and then there are girls in Karachi playing, and girls in Ahmedabad playing, they've had interactions with each other. There's not that much of like a class system there. Everybody seems to kind of come from a similar background. Everybody's families seem to share similar values. There's not a lot of disparity between that. I would say maybe in the way it is, the way Ali has mentioned it, for men's cricket. I've not really seen that in women's cricket, and in fact, I've always seen them celebrating each other. It's sort of been a community. We're doing something, we're breaking a boundary, we're doing something incredible. And specifically when you speak from an outside perspective of culture, forget just within the team, but even outside of a team. Ali mentioned religion playing a part, and I think that was probably one of our biggest barriers to women's cricket, and having women come into the fold was a lot of parents being worried about the culture of cricket. What does it mean for our women to be out on a field to play? What will their communities think? What happens when religion comes? I remember the very first tournament that my platform did was the Women's Night Tape Ball tournament in Ramzan. And you can imagine the backlash that we got. You're making women play cricket at night in Ramzan? You have broken every boundary there is to break. But the amount of girls that came in, there were like 250 girls, and they were so excited to play. So I think from a cultural aspect, it's always going to be, we're here, we're doing something, let's do it together. And I've been seeing that happen more and more and more as cricket continues to spread in other cities, and there's more demand for cricket camps and more demand for women's cricket around the country actually.
Thanks. Ahmer, we grew up, watching cricket. इतनी ज़्यादा exposure नहीं होता था because we never saw what happens in the dressing room, for example. एक आध तस्वीर आ जाती थी, हम बड़े एक्साइट हो जाते थे. मुझे याद है ये लोग जब वर्ल्ड कप जीते 1992 में, ये भंगड़ा कर रहे थे और वो तस्वीर छपी तो हमने वाह यार, क्या होता है ड्रेसिंग रूम में. There was a lot of mystery surrounding every cricketer. ये टैबलॉइड्स कहते थी बात, लेकिन आजकल तुम नोटिस करो, मतलब हर दूसरे तीसरे दिन I'll come back to पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट बोर्ड itself अपने वेबसाइट्स पे घुस जाता है ड्रेसिंग रूम के अंदर. We can now actually hear and listen टीम के जो लेक्चर्स होते हैं, प्लानिंग होती है, which is good as well, but sometimes a bit थोड़ा ज़्यादा लगने लग जाता है कि यार कुछ तो प्राइवेट लाइफ हो, कुछ तो मिस्ट्री हो, कुछ तो मज़ा है. लेकिन आई वांट टू आस्क यू अगेन एज एन ऑब्जर्वर, हमने हर किस्म की अभी यहाँ बात की, पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट कल्चर ऐसा होता था, अर्बन होता था, फिर वो थोड़ा रिलीजियस हो गया. आजकल क्या आप किस तरह डिफाइन करेंगे आजकल की पाकिस्तान टीम का क्या कल्चर है, किस तरह डिफाइन करेंगे?
आई थिंक पहली चीज़ मैं तो कहूँगा कि मेरे ख्याल में आई डोंट थिंक इट्स टू मच. आई थिंक कि अलमिया हमारा ये है कि हम क्रिकेट खेली थी क्योंकि गोरों ने आके एज अ कॉलोनियल एंटरप्राइज किया था, एंड ब्रिटिश पीपल they've invented all the sports but they don't know how to enjoy them, right? So like if you actually look at American coverage of sports, there's a lot more understanding that athletes are not just people who are performing some spirit of cricket or morality or whatever, they're rock stars, right? So मतलब अब मैं 30 साल से वसीम भाई को देख रहा हूँ, I still have a crush on him, and he was so unfair because like I was 8 years old, Pakistan final में, अब छोटे बच्चे होते हैं अल्लाह करे कुछ हो जाए, and then some guy comes up, bowls the 2 greatest deliveries you'll ever see, and you're like, yeah, I guess this is what Pakistan's like. We can win whatever match we want to whenever we feel like. So I really blame Wasim Akram for setting me on a path of complete blind optimism for quite a few decades. I think the cricket culture in Pakistan right now is getting more and more representative of society, right? So one of the things when we talk about players from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa coming into the team, that represents also Pakistani society getting more integrated. What's actually fascinating is that Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region has not only provided cricketers, like a lot of cricketers in Pakistan from there, almost the entire Afghan cricket team, not this generation but the one before it, is also based out of Pakistani cricket infrastructure. And so in one of those ways now, I think with the PSL, for example, when the PSL first came out, there was a lot of resistance to it, surprisingly, but it didn't make any sense because पाकिस्तान में इतने क्रिकेट फैंस हैं कि एक टीम काफ़ी नहीं थी. You wanted to have that ability to support your own regional teams, etc. And so cricket actually right now is probably the cultural lingua franca of the country, right? कि आपको अगर कोई चीज़ लॉन्च भी करनी होती है तो आप PSL की आड़ में करके कर देते हैं. आपकी जो सारी टीमें और उनके गाने भी निकलता है, उनकी क्लोथिंग लाइन और परफ्यूम और उम्रा पैकेज सब कुछ हर टीम के साथ आता है. And the reason for that is that cricket is almost kind of language that when it comes to culture everybody speaks about, right? So when we're talking about religion, if you start at the end, the start of the 90s, and maybe Wasim bhai can shed light on it, but someone like the Vital Signs and Wasim and Waqar would probably equal in terms of their popularity. You also had the hockey team that was world champions at that time, right? But as Pakistani society kind of evolved, like जो ये religiosity वाली बात थी, ये सिर्फ cricketers के साथ नहीं हुई थी, musicians के साथ भी हुई थी, right? Junaid Jamshed, Ali Haider, Najim Shiraz, etc., etc. And I felt a big reason for that was that the way that that Pakistani society at that time was, we weren't sure what to do with these mega stars, right? With these wildly popular people, and the fact that they were very popular, but we also didn't have any institutions. के मतलब one of the reasons Junaid Jamshed was so despondent was that he wasn't making any money after a while, right? So the way that religion came into it came to both these popular kind of things, but it was only cricket that was able to also kind of include that in it and keep expanding, right? And so for me that says that cricket kind of became that platform jahan pe all other kind of conversations can happen that sometimes don't really happen in our political sphere. So I think abhi jaise ki somebody like Naseem Shah, whose father was a goat herder, him coming to the side, what that tells you also is that cricket is the only way in Pakistan that a working class person can really take it to the top. There's no other way this society allows our other classes to travel up to the top. And so that way cricket is something that's really fascinating.
Excellent, thank you, Ahmer. Achha, just two questions, one from Ali and one from Wasim, then we get into the question answer session. And short answers, please. Ali, जैसे अभी Ahmer ने बात की, do you think आपकी ये जो religiosity वाली बात है, this is also is a reflection के यही religiosity हमने 90s में देखी आपकी urban middle classes में भी पहले. So was cricketers or musicians, as he said, mid 90s के बाद we saw that वो काफी religion की तरफ चले गए. Were they inspiring the middle classes to do the same, because we saw the middle classes also become very religious at that point in time, or was it worse and vice versa? So क्या social reason क्या था?
I think one of the things I forgot to mention is that the Tablighi Jamaat had grown hugely at this time. It was also something that had been given enormous support by the state. And Tablighi Jamaat are people who are looking to convert you back to the right path. It is, this is one of their skills. They look at ways in which to convert you back. I'm not talking about whether it's good or bad, but they are skilled in this. Now, once you have an entry into a position, and there was an entry into the Pakistan team, you can see that it's going to spread it's going to have a bigger influence. This happened in bureaucracy, it happened in the military, it happened in large parts of society. And, I go back to what Wasim bhai said, cricketers are not exempt from what's happening in society. We are a very corrupt society. We should not be surprised that you will find corruption in cricket as well. We are a religious society. You will find it in cricket as well. We are a youthful, exuberant society. You will find it in cricket and the way that we play cricket. We are supremely talented. You'll find that in cricket. We are inconsistent in parts because of the environment that we failed to provide. You'll find it in cricket as well. So the same thing goes, I think, with religiosity.
Thanks. That's a last question. Wasim, I totally agree with him. 90s में यही होता था, चाहे जो भी situation we knew, वसीम ने बकार आके विकेट ले लेंगे, चाहे 80 रन डिफेंड कर रहे हैं, या 120 डिफेंड कर रहे हैं. So that was a bad habit. अच्छा, seeing this, you comment as well. You're a very prominent commentator as well, and you're an observer of the game still. This whole phenomenon of baseball, है ना?
Baseball, yeah.
Right? And to me, it is something which can have the potential to actually totally radically redefine Test cricket.
Yes.
But I've noticed that जो टीमें पिट रही हैं उससे वो बड़ी डिफेंसिव हो रही है. वो कह रहे हैं नहीं हमारा अपना कल्चर है क्रिकेट हम अपना खेलेंगे. But don't you think we should start actually accepting that this is a fantastic way to play Test cricket and this might actually save Test cricket and other teams should just start adopting the same tack?
I think as far as Pakistan concerned, we have kind of killed Test cricket in last year or so. But coming back to baseball or mindset, it's what happened in Pakistan. Just mentioned, we lost Test series, individual records. In the end, team wins, everybody wins. Simple theory. And secondly, when you have fear of losing, कि मैं कहीं हार ना जाऊं. So when you have fear of losing, not just in cricket, in life, you most probably will fail. So while achieving your goal with positive mindset, okay, I'm going with it. If I win, and if I'm going for a win, and if I lose in 3 days, it's okay. I'll accept it. But that's not the mindset because of the culture. हमें दुश्मनों की जरूरत नहीं है. इंग्लिश की क्या है? We don't need enemies. हम खुद ही बहुत हैं. ये सात सूत वाले हम ही डरते हैं उससे. हम आप खुद ही बहुत हैं एक दूसरे के लिए. Unfortunately, तमीज़ जो मैं सीखता हूँ. अब social media, not just in Pakistan, worldwide, it's kind of a gutter for me now. I do hardly see it. I'm all for people giving their opinion. They should. It's fine. But बदतमीजी नहीं करनी चाहिए. Below the belt नहीं रहना चाहिए. ये तमीज़ घर वाले सिखाते हैं. जब तक घर से नहीं सिखाएंगे बच्चे को तमीज़, यहाँ पे कितनी हमारे कल्चर में मिडिल क्लास ले लें या हाई एंड, मुझे उम्मीदों का तो नहीं पता इतना, मिडिल क्लास जिसमें हम भी आते हैं कि अपने बच्चों से कौन बात करता है, टीनेज बच्चों से, बेटा आप बड़े हो रहे हो, आपको ये भी फीलिंग होगी, आपने ये भी करना है. नो, माई फादर नेवर डिड. आई लर्न ऑन द स्ट्रीट. आई हार्डली लर्न एनीथिंग बट आई डिड. सो ये कल्चर भी हमने ये भी सिखाना है टीवी चैनल्स में. एंड आई डोंट इवन वॉच टीवी anymore because I can't learn watching anything in TV from Pakistan, unfortunately. I like watching Discovery, I like watching National Geographic, I like watching food thing, but that can I seek सकूँ, and learning never stops. So ये चीज़ें जब fear of losing आ जाएगा, फिर वो dead wicket बनाओगे, वो अच्छी wicket बना के 3 दिन में हार जाओ, we'll be fine. It'll be at least positive. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get there.
Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you. We'll start taking questions from the audience now. Mike, please.
Good program.
पहले उनको कहना फिर आप लोग.
Good program. Thank you all. My question is very simple and direct and directed to Wasim. I'll throw you a googly, and I don't want you to pat it away. I want you to give me an honest and direct answer. Who do you think are Pakistan's greatest one batsman and one bowler? The greatest.
That's a very difficult question, by the way. I will give direct answer. If I have to pick from my era, I don't know about before me, great Aneet Mohammed Saab the, Imtiaz Saab the. But if I have to pick one, it's got to be Javed Miandad. And अगर bowling में pick करना हो, I think it'll be if you pick as a leader, as an all-rounder, as a fast bowler, that would be Imran Khan. And then of course, Waqar Yunus. He was a sight to watch. आजकल के नौजवानों को पता नहीं वो क्या चीज़ थी. I bowled at the other end with him. He was lightning fast. He was unbelievable.
And these guys used to challenge each other, basically.
Positive. We never thought कि you see rivalry होनी चाहिए. I was watching this program, I think Netflix पे आया है, called The Full Swing. It's about golfers like Formula 1. They started that. And it was a positive rivalry. ये नहीं कि मैं उसके लिए बातों करूँ कि वो आउट ना करे. ये था कि वो 5 करेगा तो मैं अगली इनिंग में मैं 5 आउट करूँगा. We used to help each other and we have our differences. I suppose we were kids, like mid-20s, early 20s. फिर आपके इर्द गिर्द भी जो होते हैं ना वो ज़्यादा differences पैदा करते हैं. So that's also very normal in our culture.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, and first of all, thank you to all the panelists for such a wonderful discussion. जी मेरा सवाल था about the future of cricket and Pakistan's role in it, and cricket as a global sport. So recently Pakistan has played a big role in the development of this sport, and especially in the UAE and in Afghanistan. और अभी रमीज राजा भी अपने tenure में उज़्बेकिस्तान के साथ भी उन्होंने कुछ initiate किए हैं collaborations. So this is a question for all of you. Where do we see Pakistani cricket as a leading force in the world, especially in places where it has not even begun yet? And what is the potential of this in Central Asia and East Asia and all that? And can we be a leading force या हमारे domestic मसले हमें रोक लेंगे?
हमारा एक चेयरमैन रह ले 6 महीने फिर बात करेंगे. You see लॉजिस्टिक भी देखना, हमने रियलिटी भी चेक करनी है. एक आता है, जैसे भी आता है, जो भी सिस्टम है वो एक सिस्टम बना के जाता है, ये करूँगा, ये होगा. दूसरा आता है वो सारा बैक टू स्क्वायर वन. So we are, roaming around in circles. बाकी Ahmer can answer, these guys can answer.
Yeah, actually, एक चीज़ मैं कहूँगा, लोग माइंड ना करें. Cricket is a fantastically ridiculous sport. कि उसमें कोई एक तो मुश्किलों से 10 टीमें खेलती हैं, वो 3 एक दूसरे से खेले जा रही हैं, उन्हें किसी और के साथ नहीं खेलना है. ठीक है, तो आप बात करें और मुल्कों में क्रिकेट फैलाने की, 150-250 साल से क्रिकेट चल रहा है. They have no interest in promoting it in other countries. You mentioned Kenya over there. Why was Kenya not supported to have better infrastructure, right? Like, forget spreading it in other countries. They can't even spread it in Pakistan and South Africa and New Zealand. वो Ashes 1.5 साल एक दफ़ा खेलते हैं, बस उनकी ज़िंदगी में बस यही है कि हम Ashes खेलेंगे. I would actually see that in the future you'd probably see franchise cricket overtake international team cricket, because international cricket doesn't follow any logic. If Pakistan was the best test team for the last few years, how do we know that? Because they weren't playing all the other teams and the other teams weren't playing them. India, we all love Indian cricket here, so we know what the problems with them is. But cricket as a sport has not shown any seriousness, any desire to expand its boundaries, which is why it's not made it to the Olympics. अब Olympics में literally पकड़म पकड़ाई आ चुका है, मगर cricket नहीं आ रहा है. Why is that? Because globally, for the longest time, it was the Imperial Cricket Council, तो वो गोरे अपनी colonial fantasies वो fulfill कर रहे थे, and now it's the Indian Cricket Council, and they are happy to just keep the sport inside their own country, और वो बस April में IPL खेलेंगे, not interested in promoting it in other places.
But
So
unfortunately, sorry, because the money comes from there.
Of course it does.
Every sponsor you see of the World Cup, teams get shares. Associate countries also get shares.
But Wasim bhai, that was the thing, right? Like with football, when they expanded to other countries, they were able to generate revenue from other places as well. With cricket, whether it's the Asian bloc or before that, there has not been a focus on expanding the game to other places.
Ali, thank you.
No, I mean, I agree with what has been said so far. I think that international cricket is under threat. I think there's a lot of problems there. I think very few sports have such a lopsided situation whereby 80% of the revenue is generated from India. So Pakistan is always going to struggle in that situation. I think I agree with Wasim bhai ke, historically speaking, Pakistan has been very supportive of new cricketing teams. We supported Sri Lanka, we supported Bangladesh, we supported Afghanistan. We were supported by India, whether you believe it or not. They sponsored our coming into the... So we've done a lot for cricket and the spread of cricket. But if Pakistan is going to make an impact, it needs credibility. And I can tell you, I think that there have been periods when our credibility has gone to rock bottom. And you need to build that up, and it takes time. If you have credibility, people will listen to Pakistan. But without credibility, it's going to be very difficult. And there are threats to the international game. Is it going to become just these 3 rich countries that are going to play each other?
Any more questions? Yeah.
Mike,
हेलो, वसीम भाई से सवाल है कि आप उसको देखें, इमरान खान की मकबूलियत देखें, कभी आपको ख्याल आया कि आप भी सियासत में आए?
जी वसीम.
valid question. No, I have the answer for it. I think at my age, I just don't want to take stress. एक बंदा मिला अच्छा हमें 70 साल में, उसका सत्यानाश मार दिया, तो मेरे साथ क्या करोगे यार?
that.
Now this is my observation, I may be wrong. There are stalwarts, I mean big names in cricket, ex-cricketers. When they were appointed to coach teams for PSL, they produced excellent results. But when the same people were given the responsibility to coach the national cricket team, they were not even half as successful. They were not even half as successful. As far as I am concerned, it's both ironic as well as paradoxical. But to your mind, what is the reason and what it is to do with? I mean the factors.
Thank you. That's, I think, a very good observation. Wasim?
Well, I think the first thing is that the PSL is a very limited kind of situation. Any franchise tournament is very limited, right? आपके पास एक small amount of time होता है. There's not a lot of variables in it, and I feel PSL sides, franchise sides also are a lot more analytically driven. They're a lot more aware कि भाई हमारे पास 6 हफ्ते हैं, इसमें हर बंदे का ये role है. Let's stick to just that. I think when you come to the national team setup, just the scrutiny that you're coming under, आप probably जो national team का कप्तान होता है, जो selector होते हैं, are get more scrutiny than most of your cabinet or important politicians, right? And I think that plays a part. I think there's a lot more power politics that's involved. When you're coming to the PSL side, you're just dealing with the coaching of it. When you're working the national setup, you're dealing with a lot more administratively, bureaucratically as well. And then thirdly, PSL is just one format of cricket, right? T20. I think one of the things that cricket at large has struggled with is कि अब आपके पास 3 किस्म के formats हैं, and oftentimes you need 3 very different approaches for it. So I think that you saw somebody like Misbah al-Haq, when he was in charge of everything, he was struggling to get the same kind of क्या कहूँगा मैं, work ethic or philosophy that you saw when he was captain or even when he was involved in the leadership trust for Islamabad United. So I think, I have not actually coached anyone other than in my dreams, so I can't answer further than that. But I think structurally that's the difference.
Okay, one last question.
You see, it's very complicated. It's not an easy answer, an easy fix. How come I haven't even accepted to coach Pakistan? There's got to be a reason behind it, no? Because I'm sane. Because politics, फिर chairman बदल जाना है, फिर selection में आपने बोलना है. So it's the culture, it's our culture. वो cricket में भी है वो coaching में भी है वो. And then the criticism. Okay, if team is losing, you criticize, it's fine. Give your opinion, but badtamizi, on social media, they go below belt. So why take this unnecessary burden? Karachi में रह के मैं एक चीज़ सीखा बड़ी important, ये है कि जिधर की हवा है उधर को निकल जाओ.
वैसे आगे समंदर है ख्याल से. बस. Okay, one last question.
तो अहमर भाई आपसे ये पूछना था कि पाकिस्तान में प्लेयर्स क्रिकेट एसोसिएशन क्यों नहीं बन पाई, क्योंकि जब अभी मैं देखता हूँ बहुत अजीब से लोग पीसीबी में आ गए, तो जब शकील शेख जैसे लोग डायरेक्टली इनके ट्वीट्स कर रहे हैं प्लेयर्स के खिलाफ और वो इतनी बड़ी पोजीशन पे आ गए पीसीबी में, तो मुझे डर लग रहा है कि वो जर्नलिस्ट वगैरह के साथ मिल के पावर पे एक तरह से एकदम हमले कर रहे हैं. इतना अजीब से मुझे लग रहा है. तो ये इनको रोकने वाला क्या कोई नहीं हो सकता, क्योंकि ये तो सबको हटा देंगे. मुझे तो ऐसे डर लग रहा है एक चीज़ से प्यार है वो भी ख़त्म हो जाए.
पहली चीज़, अगर आपको पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट से प्यार है तो डर तो आपको सारे वक्त लगता रहेगा. There's not going to be one day where you're just like, oh great, Pakistan cricket's in a great place, I'm so happy. And I think secondly, we were actually very close to a players association a few months ago. I don't think it's been properly reported, so I don't know if I want to reveal why it didn't happen. But one of the senior players eventually didn't come through. There was a lot of unity amongst the players, and I think this is a discussion that's been happening for a very long time. And every time in cricket, when the players have gotten together, you've actually seen the sport revolutionize. So the most famous example is obviously during the Kerry Packer years. It really forced cricket as a sport to change. We're seeing that now with franchise cricket, that boards abhi bhi ek badi purani, मतलब they feel like they own the players or NOC नहीं देते, ये नहीं देते. you're seeing that also going to be changing the way the boards operate. I think that there's been momentum for a players association for a while. There are people talking about it, but we don't really understand this कि जो पाकिस्तान टीम में लड़के खेल रहे हैं, जो लड़कियां खेल रही हैं on the women's side, these people are coming from really small towns or really small working class backgrounds. For them to have the kind of exposure and the kind of scrutiny, and there are only people in their mid 20s and now.
I'm sorry to cut you, but इन बच्चों को जो humble background से आ रहे हैं, इनके मैनेजर्स को ये भी सिखाना पड़ेगा कि हर बात पे शेक्सपियर की इंग्लिश में ट्वीट नहीं करते. कुछ सब्जेक्ट होते हैं जिस पे आप स्पोर्ट्समैन हो, थोड़ी बहुत गलती कर लो, कॉमा इधर उधर कर लो. So you know ये चीजें भी तो मैनेजर ने लड़कों को खुद सीखनी है ना. You travel the world.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn this, what is traveling the world? I was first year of my college. I learned everything. I've met people eventually. I'm still learning. So जब learning never stops, like I said, फिर ये सीखते नहीं है. वही अब पाकिस्तान कल्चर में क्रिकेट बोर्ड में भी वही है. हर डिसीजन पीसीबी चेयर एवरी ये पूल भी मंगाने हैं तो उनसे पूछना है और वो भी कहेंगे हाँ यार मंगा लो. अब मेरा मतलब है कि सीईओ रखा है या सीएफओ रखा है, उनको कोई दिस इज योर जॉब एंड देन यू आंसर इट टू मी इफ नथिंग गोस. बट दैट डजंट हैपन. माइक्रो मैनेजिंग. Unfortunately, that's what Pakistan Cricket Board has been. Still now, if Pakistan team is touring, for instance, to Australia, they'll give them contract today. Today, रात की फ्लाइट है ताकि उनका लॉयर भी ना पढ़ सके, खुद भी ना पढ़ सके. साइन करो, नहीं करोगे तो नहीं जाओगे. So we are still living in the 60s, 70s. So ये प्रॉब्लम हमारे साथ बेटा.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Wasim.
Thank you.
Ahmer, Hadeel. Thank you so much. And thank you all.
Thank you.
And that's it.